Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam to all the Vaishnavas listening to me. Today we will continue from the third question of 50th chapter called Bhava. Before that, let us offer our prayers at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and all our previous acharyas. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत श्री राधाकांत नमोस्तुते तद्कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितनाम पावनेभ्यो श्रीवैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Third question is there any illicit activity found in the life of a devotee who has attained bhava? Answer is, it is not that the life of bhava changes the life of regulative devotional service all of a sudden, but the activities of a bhava bhakta appear to be independent of all the regulative principles. All his activities are regulated by his strong spontaneous attachment. Although the nature of a person on the platform of bhava is independent, there is no possibility of any disturbance from him. Such a person does not have any taste for any kind of pious and sinful activities. He does not engage in any activities as his duty. He does not feel like imitating anyone. Maintenance of his body, mind, and the society are automatically carried out due to his previous habit. Since he is indifferent to any activity, then there is never any possibility for him to engage in sinful activities. Fourth question is, what is the fate of a devotee who is practicing regulative devotional service if he disregards a devotee who has attained bhava? Answer is, the lifestyle of a bhava bhakta is similar to the lifestyle of sadhana bhakta. A devotee who has attained bhava is fully satisfied. If a devotee who is on the level of regulative devotional service disrespects such a bhava bhakta, then his accumulated wealth of devotional service will gradually diminish. Fifth question is, what are the external symptoms of the awakening of bhava? Answer is, the first stage of prema is known as bhava. When the eighth sattvika vikaras, bodily transformations such as standing of the hairs on the end and crying are slightly manifest. Sixth question is, what are the anubhavas that manifest when the seed of bhava fructifies? Answer is, if love of Krishna is a seedling state has fructified in one's heart, one is not agitated by material things. Not a moment is lost, every moment is utilized for Krishna or things connected to him. In the material field, people are interested in material enjoyment, mystic power, and sense gratification. However, these things do not appeal to the devotee at all. Although a pure devotee's standard is above all, he still considers himself to be the lowest stage of life. A fully surrendered devotee always hopes that Lord Krishna will be kind to him. This hope is very firm in him. This eagerness is chiefly characterized by an ardent desire to attain the mercy of the Lord. Due to having such great relish for the holy name, one is inclined to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra constantly. At this stage of bhava, a devotee has awakened the tendency to chant and describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. He has attached for this process a devotee absorbed in ecstatic emotion for Krishna always has affection for residing in a place where Krishna's pastimes were performed. Seventh question is, do the 8 symptoms of ecstatic love appear in the devotees who have attained bhava? Answer is, the 8 symptoms of bhava are being stunned, trembling, perspiring, standing of hairs on the end, fading away of bodily color, weeping, choking and devastation. These symptoms manifest in the devotees who have attained bhava. Eighth question is, how do the devotees who have attained bhava spend their lives? Answer is, they constantly chant the holy name and fame of the Lord, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are benedictory. So doing, they travel all over the world without envy, humble and fully satisfied. Ninth question is, how are the dealings of the devotees who have attained bhava beyond the worldly and Vedic consideration? Answer is, having achieved love of Godhead, the devotees sometimes cry out loud, absorbed in thought of the infallible Lord. Sometimes they laugh, feel great pleasure, speak out loud to the Lord, dance or sing. Such devotees, having transcended conditioned life, sometimes imitate the unborn Supreme by acting out his pastimes, and sometimes achieving his personal audience, they remain peaceful and silent. 10th question is, what is devotees' darshana of Sri Shyamasundara? Answer is, Sri Shyamasundara's complexion is dark blue and his garment golden. He is dressed just like a dramatic dancer. He is wearing a peacock feather colored minerals, sprigs of flower buds and a garland of forest flowers and leaves. He rests one hand upon the shoulder of a friend and with the other twirls a lotus. Lilies grace his ears, his hair hang down over his cheeks and his lotus-like face is smiling. 11th question is, how do the qualities of the Supreme Lord manifest in the hearts of the devotees who have attained bhava? Answer is, O Lord, we do not know how the serpent Kaliya has attained this great opportunity of being touched by the dust of your lotus feet. For this end, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all other desires and taking austere vows. 12th question is, what kind of humility and desire for perfection do renunciate devotees who have attained bhava display? Answer is, the gopis of Vrindavana have given up the association of their husbands, sons and other family members who are very difficult to give up, and they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda Krishna, who is searched for by Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be fortunate enough to be the one of the bushes, creepers or herbs in Vrindavana, because the gopis trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. 13th question is, do the gopis who have attained perfection in bhava have any desire for material enjoyment or liberation? Answer is, among all persons on earth, these cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives, for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high-class Brahmana, or even as Lord Brahma himself? 14th question is, in which subject do the devotees who have attained bhava show their attachment? Answer is, persons who have attained bhava always manifest desire to hear, chant and remember the transcendental qualities of the Lord. With that, we complete 50th chapter and move on to 51st chapter, which is called Paramartha. First question is, what is the Paramartha or ultimate goal of life? Answer is, anything other than pure devotional service to the Lord cannot be called Paramartha or the ultimate goal of life. Second question, are the vows of devotional service useless? Answer is, cultivating the limbs of devotional service are not useless endeavors. Third question is, what are the 5 best limbs of devotional service? Answer is, worshipping the deity, relishing the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam with advanced devotees, associating with more advanced devotees who are affectionate and are in the same line as oneself, congregationally chanting the holy names and residing in Mathura. If we further summarize, then chanting the holy names and serving the Vaishnavas are the topmost. Fourth question is, how many types of worship of Tulsi are there? Answer is, Tulsi is auspicious in all respects. Simply by seeing, touching, remembering, praying to, bowing down before, hearing about, sowing, offering water, or simply by worshipping Tulsi, there is always auspiciousness. Fifth question is, among the service to the Lord's subordinates, which is the principal one? Answer is, serving Tulsi is the principal service among the service to the Lord's subordinates. Sixth question is, under whose guidance should one circumambulate the abode of Sri Gauranga? Answer is, I will happily visit the exalted devotees, all those places where my beloved Lord Gauranga enacted his pastimes. Seventh question is, what should be the duty of a devotee if he gets his food and clothing but loses them? Answer is, a devotee should not be agitated if food and clothing are not obtained or if they are obtained and then lost. He should peacefully remember Krishna. Eighth question is, in the course of practicing the best 5 limbs of devotional service, in which subject does a practitioner develop greed and what is the result of this? Answer is, by offenselessly serving the deities, relishing the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam, associating with senior devotees who are on the path of Raga, chanting the holy names of the Lord and residing in Sri Mathura Mandala, one achieves the mercy of the pure devotees. On the strength of such mercy, a practitioner of devotional service develops greed for the service of Krishna, who is the worshipable Lord of the residents of Braja. From such greed, Raganuga Bhakti under the guidance of the residents of Braja appears. It is transcendental to the Vedic consideration. While cultivation this devotional service, within a very short time, pure unalloyed devotional service becomes manifest. These are the confidential teachings of Sriman Mahaprabhu. With that, we complete 51st chapter and move on to 52nd chapter, which is called 9 types of devotional service. First question is, how many types of cultivation of hearing are there? Answer is, there are 3 types of cultivation of hearing. Hearing about the scriptures, hearing about the holy names and topics of the Lord, and hearing about the devotion-filled discourses. Considering the signs about the absolute truth, describing the pastimes of the Lord from Srimad Bhagavatam, discussing the characteristics of the Vaishnavas, and hearing about the ancient history of the families of Vaishnavas are counted in the category of hearing the scriptures. These are to be understood from hearing about the conclusive statements based on the Vedanta written by great personalities after carefully rejecting inconclusive non-Vaishnava statements. Second question is what happens if one hears the topics of and conclusion about Hari? Answer is by hearing about the topics and signs of Hari, one automatically cultivates knowledge of the scriptures. Third question is by hearing the topics of Hari, does one worship the Lord and become detached from material enjoyments? Answer is by hearing the topics of Hari, both cultivation of spiritual science and detachment from material enjoyment are done. Fourth question is what are the different stages of hearing? Answer is there are two stages of hearing. First stage is hearing about the qualities of Krishna from the mouths of the saintly persons before one's faith develops. By such hearing, one certainly develops faith. When one's faith is awakened, one develops a strong desire to hear about the names, forms, qualities and pastimes of Krishna. The second stage is hearing Krishna's holy names, etc. from the mouths of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. Fifth question is does hearing during the time of sadhana helps the hearing when one attains perfection? Answer is the hearing in the perfectional stage appears while hearing from the mouths of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas during the time of sadhana. Sixth question is what are the gradual platforms beginning from Shravanadasa to Sampattidasa? Answer is hearing about the absolute truth from the mouth of the spiritual master is called Shravanadasa. When a practitioner accepts those instructions in truth, it is called Varanadasa. When he cultivates the mood with blissful remembrance, it is called Smaranadasa. When he is able to properly bring the mood within himself, it is called Apana or Praptidasa. And when one separates himself from the temporary material existence and obtains his own desired constitutional form, it is called Sampattidasa. Seventh question is how many types of cultivation of chanting are there? Answer is cultivation of kirtana or chanting is extremely sublime. Reciting the scriptures, glorifying Lord's name and qualities, offering prayers, making humble appeals, and chanting the holy names softly are the 5 kinds of cultivation of kirtana. Glorification of the Lord's holy names and qualities are done through discourses, explanations, and singing. Appealing is of 3 types: prayers, humility, and hankering. Eighth question is among all the limbs of devotional service, which one is the best? Answer is it has been described that kirtana or chanting is the best among all the limbs of the devotional service. Ninth question is why kirtana or chanting is the best? Answer is among the 3 limbs of devotional service, namely hearing, chanting, and remembering, chanting is the best of all because hearing and remembering are included in the chanting. 10th question is why kirtana is beneficial to all? The principle of kirtana invites as the future church of the world all classes of men without distinction of caste or clan to the highest cultivation of the spirit. This church, it appears, will extend all over the world and take place of all sectarian churches which exclude outsiders from the precincts of the mosque, church or the temple. 11th question is how should one practice remembrance or smarana of the Lord? Answer is remembering Lord Krishna's names, forms, qualities and pastimes is called smarana. Smarana is of 5 kinds. A little bit of thinking or searching is called smarana. Abstracting the mind from the previous subject matter and engaging it in preliminary remembrance is called dharana. Particularly thinking about the Lord's forms etc. is called dhyana. Constant and uninterrupted dhyana is called dhruvanusmriti. and the manifestation of the object of dhyana is called samadhi. 12th question is, what is the best type of entombment? Answer is, there is no superior entombment in this world than to remember Lord Vishnu. 13th question is, what is the difference between smarana and dhyana? Answer is, the difference between smarana and dhyana is that in smarana the holy names, mantras, forms, qualities and pastimes manifest to some extent. In dhyana, the forms, the qualities and the pastimes of the Lord are properly remembered. Prolonging the duration of dhyana is called dharana. When dhyana is matured, it is called nididhasana. Therefore, dharana and nididhasana are included in dhyana. 14th question is, how many kinds of smritis are there and what are their names? Answer is, there are two kinds of smritis or remembrance of the holy names and remembrance of the mantras. Chanting a prescribed number of holy names on a tulsi bead is called remembrance, and remembrance of the mantras while keeping track with one's fingers is called remembrance of the mantras. 15th question is, how can one revive the Ashtakala service to the Supreme Lord? Answer is, one should remember Shishtashtaka and practice Smarana and Kirtan accordingly. Then gradually Ashtakala service will be awakened in the heart. At that time, all unwanted contaminations including religiosity, economic development, sense gratification and liberation will appear insignificant, and one will achieve the treasure of love. 16th question is, what is Pada Sevana and which limbs of devotional service are included in it? Answer is, serving the lotus feet of the Lord is the fourth limb of devotional service. One should serve the lotus feet of the Lord along with hearing, chanting and remembering. In the course of serving the lotus feet of the Lord, it is extremely necessary for one to consider himself a beggar and an unqualified person. One should also realize his worshipable Lord as eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Looking at the face of the Lord, touching the Lord, circumambulating the abode of the Lord, visiting the holy places, temples, Ganges, Jagannath Puri, Dwaraka, Navadvipa, as well as following the Lord's procession are included in Padasevana. While describing the 64 limbs of devotional service, Sri Rupa Goswami has elaborated on these points clearly. Serving Tulsi and the devotees are also included in this limb. 17th question is, what is the necessity for worshipping the deity? Answer is, although chanting the Lord's holy names awards all perfection, in order to lead a devotional life, worship of the deity is required. 18th question is, what should one do if he has developed special faith in worship of the Lord? Answer is, there are many considerations regarding the worship of the Lord. After engaging in hearing, chanting and remembering, if one still possesses some attachment for the worship of the Lord, then he should take shelter of the lotus feet of the spiritual master and take initiation from him and engage in the worship of the Lord. 19th question is, what is the harm if one does not take initiation before engaging in deity worship, and what are other considerations that are found on the path of worship? Answer is, since the hearts of the conditioned souls are polluted due to sinful activities, in order to purify such hearts, worship of the deities with proper mantras have been prescribed in the Shastras. Taking initiation is required for the materialistic persons. In the Krishna mantra, there is no need of any consideration. Taking initiations into the Krishna mantra is most auspicious for the living entities. Among all mantras in this world, the Krishna mantra is the best and is most powerful. As soon as qualified person accepts initiation from a bona fide spiritual master, he attains spiritual strength. The spiritual master instructs his inquisitive disciple in the process of worshipping the deity. In brief, it is to be understood that Sri Krishna Janmashtami, performing Kartik vows, observing Ekadashi and bathing in the month of January are included in the process of Archana. It is very important to note regarding the worship of Krishna that it is extremely necessary to worship the devotees of Krishna along with the worship of Krishna. 20th question is, how many types of Archana are there and which worshipper did Sriman Mahaprabhu respect more? Answer is, Sri Murti worshippers are divided into two classes, the ideal and the physical. Those of the physical school are entitled from their circumstances of life and the state of mind to establish temple institutions. Those who are by circumstances and position entitled to worship the Sri Murti in mind have, with due deference to the temple institutions, a tendency to worship usually by Shravana and Kirtan, and their church is universal and is independent of caste and color. Mahaprabhu prefers this latter class and shows their worship in his Shishashtaka. 21st question is, what is the duty of a worshipper who is endowed with the knowledge of his relationship with the Lord? Answer is, if one wants to worship the deity form of the Lord with full knowledge of his relationship with the Lord, then he should simultaneously worship Lord Krishna and his devotees. 22nd question is, what is the gradual process of worship? Answer is, first one should worship one's spiritual master by offering him asana, sitting place, padya, water for washing his feet, argya, certain ingredients, snanya, water for taking bath, vastra, clothes, and abharana, decorations. Thereafter, one should take his permission to engage in the worship of Sri Radha and Krishna. After worshipping Sri Radha Krishna, one should first offer their remnants to the spiritual master and then to other Vaishnavas and the demigods. One should also offer the Lord's remnants to one's forefathers. 23rd question is it necessary to worship the demigods apart from the Lord Vishnu? Answer is, by worshipping Lord Vishnu, all the demigods are automatically worshipped. Therefore, there is no need to worship the demigods separately. 24th question is, which propensity is prominent among the unalloyed devotees? Answer is, there are two kinds of propensities in the cultivation of devotional service, the propensity of worshipping and the propensity for hearing, remembering, etc. Even though both are reasonable, still the propensity for hearing, chanting and remembering is more prominent among the unalloyed devotees. Among great personalities perform up to some extent the act of remembrance in the course of chanting the holy names, and up to some extent the act of chanting the holy names loudly. The special benefit of loud kirtana is that the processes of hearing, chanting and remembering are simultaneously carried out. 25th question is, what is Vandana or offering prayers to the Lord and how many kinds of Vandanas are there? Answer is, Vandana is the sixth limb of devotional service. Although Vandana is included within Padasevana and Kirtana, it has been described as separate limbs of devotional service. Offering obeisances is also Vandana. This offering of obeisance are of two kinds, offering obeisance with one part of the body and offering obeisances with 8 parts of the body. Offering obeisances with one hand, offering obeisances with one's body fully covered, offering obeisances to the Lord from the front, from the back, or from the left side of the Lord, as well as offering obeisances to the Lord inside the deity room are considered to be offenses. 26th question is, what are the principles of Dasya? Answer is, I am an eternal servant of Krishna. This conviction is called Dasya. Worship in the mood of Dasya is best. Offering obeisances, offering prayers, offering all of one's activities, performing worship, remembering and hearing the topics of the Lord are included within Dasya. 27th question is, how many kinds of Sakhya are there? Answer is, the symptoms of friendship with the desire to benefit Krishna is called Sakhya. There are two kinds of Sakhya, Vaidha Sakhya and Raga Sakhya. At this juncture, we have to accept only Vaidha Sakhya. The friendship which is found in the worship of the deity form of the Lord is called Vaidha Sakhya. 28th question is, what is the symptom of Atma Nivedana? Answer is, to surrender everything to Krishna is called Atma Nivedana. The symptom of Atma Nivedana is to become free from any personal endeavor and to dovetail all endeavors for the pleasure of Krishna. Just as sold out cow does not endeavor for her own maintenance, one should also remain subordinate to the will of Krishna and surrender one's own independence to Krishna. With that, we complete 52nd chapter and move on to 53rd chapter, which is called one's constitutional propensities. First question is, what is one's constitutional and temporary propensities and how is one's nature determined? Answer is, the eternal nature of an object is its constitutional propensity. The nature of an object arises from its constitution. When an object is created by the will of Krishna, a nature is also created as the eternal companion of that object. This nature is the eternal propensity of that object. Later on, when due to some reasons or some different association, that object undergoes some changes, then its nature also changes or becomes perverted. After a while, when this perverted nature becomes stronger, it appears as the constitutional propensity. This perverted nature is not the constitutional propensity of the living entities. The perverted nature occupies the position of the constitutional propensity and passes as the constitutional propensity. For example, water is an object, liquidness is its nature. Incidentally, if the water becomes ice, then hardness becomes its nature and acts like its constitutional nature. Actually, this perverted nature is not eternal, but it is temporary, because it appears for some cause, and when that cause is removed, it disappears. But the constitutional propensity of a living entity is eternal. Even when it is perverted, it remains dormant within. In due course of time, it will certainly manifest. The nature of the object is its eternal constitutional propensity, and the perverted nature of the object is its temporary propensity. Second question is, what is the eternal constitutional propensity of the living entities? Answer is, Krishna is the infinite supreme spirit, and the living entities are the fragmental part and parcels of that supreme spirit. In spiritual qualities, they both are identical, but according to the difference in their perfection and imperfection, their nature certainly becomes different. Krishna is the eternal Lord of the living entities, and the living entities are his eternal servants. This is natural. Krishna is all attractive, and the living entities are attracted. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the living entities are controlled by him. Krishna is the seer, and the living entities are seen. Krishna is complete, and the living entities are poor and insignificant. Krishna is omnipotent, and the living entities are powerless. Therefore, eternal subordination or service to Krishna is in the living entities' eternal nature or constitutional duties. The constitutional duty of a living entity is to love God. The living entity is not a product of matter, rather, He is transcendental to matter. Consciousness is its constitution. To love God is its nature. Service to Krishna is that pure love of God. Therefore, the constitutional duty of a living entity is to love Krishna by engaging in his service. Third question is, why is Vaishnava Dharma the eternal religious principles? Answer is, the pure Vaishnava Dharma that is found in Srimad Bhagavatam is the eternal constitutional dharma of the living entities. All religious principles which have been preached throughout the world can be divided into three categories. These are eternal religious principles, occasional religious principles, and temporary religious principles. Those religious principles in which there is no discussion about God and the eternity of the spirit, soul, is denied are called temporary religious principles. Those religious principles which accept the eternity of God and the spirit soul but preach that one can attain the favor of God only through temporary methods are called occasional religious principles. Those religious principles which teach the attainment of the service of Krishna through pure love are called eternal religious principles. Even though these eternal religious principles appear differently according to different country, caste and language, yet they are one and the most relishable. The Vaishnava religion, which is widely spread throughout India, is the ideal of eternal religious principles. Moreover, great personalities and exalted devotees have accepted that the religious principles taught by our most beloved Lord Gaurahari, the son of Sachi, as pure Vaishnava religion. Fourth question is, which religious principles are the purest of all? Answer is, that religion is the purest which gives you the purest idea of the God. The absolute religion requires an absolute conception. Fifth question is, which religious principle is worth being called actual religious principle? Answer is, that religious principle whose ultimate goal is pure love of God is actual religious principle. Sixth question is, are religious principles one? Answer is, the religious principles of the human beings can never be many. That religious principle which is eternal for all human beings can never become different due to time, place and circumstances. In fact, an eternal religious principle is one without a second. Seventh question is there eternal religious principle one or many? Answer is, the eternal religious principle is one. Every living entity has an eternal religious principle and it is called Vaishnava Dharma. This dharma cannot be changed due to difference in language, country or caste. Many people address this dharma of living entities in various names, but they cannot create any separate dharma. Rather, the minute spirit soul's loving propensity towards the Supreme Spirit is its eternal constitution, propensity or Jaiva Dharma. Since the living entities have got different nature, their constitutional propensity also appears to be of different shapes and perversion. That is why the pure state of the living entities have been addressed as Vaishnava Dharma. Other religious systems are pure in proportion to the possession of Vaishnava Dharma. Eighth question is, what is pure Vaishnava's Dharma? Answer is, two separate dharma are passing on in this world in the name of Vaishnava Dharma. One is pure Vaishnava Dharma and the other one is perverted Vaishnava Dharma. Even though pure Vaishnava Dharma is one in truth, according to different rasas, it has been categorized as four: Vaishnava Dharma in the mood of Dasya, Vaishnava Dharma in the mood of Sakhya, Vaishnava Dharma in the mood of Vatsalya, and Vaishnava Dharma in the mood of Madhurya. Actually, pure Vaishnava Dharma is one and without a second. Other name of this dharma is Nitya Dharma or Paradharma. The following statement from the Veda, Jajanate Sarvam Vijnatam bhavati, or by knowing which everything becomes known, aims at pure Vaishnava dharma. With that, we complete today's session. We'll continue hereafter in the next session. My sincere obeisances at the lotus feet of Srila Gurudev and the divine couple Shri Shri Radha Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.